I would like to call the meeting to order, the meeting of the Energy and Environmental Committee for Kane County. My name is Mavis Bates. Today is April 16th. It is 9:01. So let's be timely and get this meeting started, called to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Onicki?
Present.
Allen?
Present.
Caius?
Allen
present.
Molina?
Molina present.
Strathman?
Strathman here.
Weber?
Weber present.
Shepro? Bates?
Here.
Rook?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 12th meeting?
Caius move.
Molina seconds.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of the minutes from the March 12th meeting? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Allen?
Allen, aye.
Caius?
Caius, yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Weber?
Weber, yes.
Onicki?
Yes.
Yates?
Yes. Weber, Steve, will this be Mr. Weber, will this be our last chance to have you with us? Do we know?
As of right now, yes, but nothing is official until the 20th.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for serving on our committee and helping. Okay,
problem.
I would like to turn the meeting over to Jody Wolnick for a discussion of our electric aggregation program.
I'm going to ask Ivy to introduce our speaker today.
Okay.
Hi,
thank you.
everyone. Good morning. Our speaker is here today, so I'm going to take my laptop over to her so you can see her face. I'd like to introduce Sharon Durling. She is our NIMEC consultant, and that stands for Northern Illinois Municipal Electric Collaborative. She helps us with our electric aggregation program. One moment, please.
Oh, thank you, Ivy. That's a good
Thank you,
idea.
Blair, could you pull up her slides, please? They're in the packet. There you go.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you, Committee Chair. We'll go to the first slide. This is just a little background of your current program that was signed last year about this time. It was a one-year term at a fixed rate of 6.37 cents per kilowatt hour. Today, the ComEd rate is typically right around 7 cents. So the blue line is your unincorporated portion of the county resident and small business owner rate. And that red line is the ComEd rate, which you see varies. Next slide. I'll just move along, and if you want to interrupt with questions, fine, or I'll wait to the end. So same as last year, we brought two different pricing options, but because the county has a very, what I'll call attractive consumption profile, according to the suppliers that analyze consumption profiles of all the meters in unincorporated Kane County. So there are two options that we offer. And again, I said kind of on the cusp, and we won't know until we get live pricing which is sort of the best direction to go. But here, as you see, I had estimated ComEd rate, and was just actually announced about 78 hours ago. It is 7 cents for the next energy year, so it's no longer estimated, it's actual. AEP Energy came in for a one-year term at, I think that's 645. Next lowest was Dynegy Energy. These are kind of on the cusp. We don't guarantee savings, but that's what would be, I think, the objective of the county for having this program is if savings could be assured. The ComEd rate of 7 cents can float up or down by a half cent. So it can be in a range of 6.5 to 7.5. So ideally, a rate below 6.5 would be excellent, with a rate above 6.5 likely to cause savings, but that's where we get to sort of questionable uncertainty. So next page. Again, those rates were indicative. We don't have final. Again, as last year, we'll look at another program in the event that, let's say, all bids are significantly higher than ComEd or doesn't look like there's savings available for residents, we have another rate that brings benefits to the county. We call it the at ComEd rate program because it's exactly at the ComEd rate. Now, were you to suspend the program, everyone goes back to ComEd, they pay the ComEd rate. We have a program we've implemented with 60 communities where rather than in the program, they continue, they pay exactly the ComEd rate. And I just said it ranges between like 6.5 and 7.5 cents. In other words, it would identically match that every month, whether up or down. So just like ComEd, it would be variable. And well, one thing, there's no rate risk. No one would ever pay a penny more than the ComEd rate. Next page.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please,
Hi,
Mavis.
this is Mavis. So can that be considered a cost saving option if it rides the ComEd rate?
There would be no savings, nor would there be any payment
Risk.
above the ComEd rate. Sorry
Okay.
to blow into that. So
Okay.
there would be zero savings and zero payment aboard. It's kind of a flat.
Okay. No savings and no risk. All right.
Yes, so begs the question, I mean, chairperson, what are the benefits? Why would you do that? The county could select renewable energy up to 100% and become an EPA green power partner. There would be a civic contribution to the county, and again, there would be no rate risk. So that civic contribution comes with no restrictions whatsoever. Some of our communities, because of upended budgets from COVID, have just put it into general funds in the last year. But last night was at a village board, and they want to take their funds for to be able to pay for some recycling efforts that they have. Other communities talk about car charging stations, but it would be at the whatever the interest is of the county. Next page. Just a list to show you that it's not a beta test, that we've done this program with 60 communities. Next page.
Excuse me. I think
Yes.
isn't Aurora on that same plan?
Yes, yes, they are.
Okay.
The city of Aurora implemented this, I think, over a year ago.
I
I
got
think-
kicked off, so I got solar panels instead. But I thought that was what we had done, was at the ComEd rate. But it kept booting me off of the plan, so,
Oh,
which is something I'm interested in also.
okay. I didn't personally manage that program, but I know that for the folks who did, and I think you were instrumental in helping that happen.
I
so
did.
That was great.
I was on the committee.
I think the
Okay,
city
thank
is
you.
very appreciative to you for that. So that's awesome. Next page. Kind of going to get into the weeds here. I just said it's possible that we can't get savings versus the ComEd rate. Get out of the other side, same mouth here. I said, well, we could pay exactly the ComEd rate, but possibly achieve a civic contribution. And that would be in 6 figures, by the way. We'll get to that in a minute. So how does that work? Or you can't save residents money, yet we can have a ComEd rate program and have a large civic contribution. That's the question mark hanging in the air that I'm going to address. This chart shows 10 bars. I'm going to pretend each bar is a single home. So we've got 10 different homes in Kane County or anywhere. The actual cost to supply energy varies hugely. It's a complex, it's all about timing. By law, power must be available on demand at all times. And sometimes at certain peak periods of the year and seasons, it's very expensive to deliver that. So if your meter happens to be a big draw at a peak period of time, it's actually very expensive to serve your account. So if you look at the bar on the right, and this is just a sample, this presumes the ComEd rate at 7.8. So ComEd socializes the rate rather than charge everyone a different rate. That'd be a little crazy. The socialized rate at 7.8 in this example indicates that the meter person using the meter on the far right really is a much costlier account to serve. Whereas on the left, it's a much less costlier. It's not necessarily about volume. If you have a bigger home or a large user, it's sort of a matter of timing. There's a number of complexities that go into that are a little bit beyond me, but that's sort of the basics. So on the next page, what we do in these programs is the group circled in red, leave at ComEd. The group on the left that are less expensive to serve, and the suppliers will hope that if their usage patterns are similar in the future, this is how they are in the past, they enroll those ratepayers. And the ICC and ComEd are great with this. The program is neutral to ComEd in that they don't earn or lose any money on supply because they don't offer supply. So roughly half of the residents would be enrolled, would pay the ComEd rate guaranteed. The other half of the residents would stay at ComEd. To be clear, this is an opt-out program, and any resident has the choice to go either way. They're free to opt out, or if someone in the red group says, but I want to be enrolled with the supplier, we enroll them because it's 100% customer choice. That's the law, and that's what we want to serve. Next page. Oh, if you were to go with the ComEd rate program, there's the option of becoming a green EPA power partner community, and they ship a couple of signs you can post in the county. Next page. This is the option B that I've been talking a little bit about at ComEd rate. If we could get a bid of 6 cents per kilowatt hour, that would be great and would be assured savings, maybe $50 to $150 per year, just a broad range on average for ratepayers, and that would be great. If that's not achievable, you may wish to pivot to this ComEd rate program. Another option is to suspend altogether, so actually 3 options. I didn't place option C. Option C is just to depart the program entirely. But option B, we have 2 suppliers that have given indicative offers. If you wanted to provide 100% renewable energy for the county, Eligo on the left offers, I think that's $382,000 annual civic contribution. MC Squared didn't present a number at that level for this indicative bid. Alternatively, if you just wanted to achieve the EPA minimum and become an EPA green power partner, Eligo offers $419, MC Squared $324 in this indicative example. Final pricing probably won't vary a lot. Yes?
What is EPA minimum? What is the EPA minimum?
Okay, the EPA minimum is the amount required to achieve that partnership. And I didn't put that percentage in there because it's not yet known. It's probably around 10 or 12%. Would need to get data on all commercial, the entire volume through the unincorporated county. But it's going to be in a range between roughly 10 or 12. We don't know.
Okay, but this is all at the ComEd rate.
Yes, yes, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
So these are both Chicago headquartered businesses that we have had significant work with, so I'm very comfortable with both of these firms. Next page. This is what the county could proceed toward, receiving firm bids, selecting which is the best offer, A or B. Then you select a term of 1, 2, or 3 years, and the program renews at August, so it takes a couple of months, which is why we're talking in April now before August. Next page. This may be the last. Yeah, that's it. Happy to take further questions. You've had good questions so far, Chairwoman.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Before we dive into questions, I do just want to add a quick history of the program and also a note to guide the discussion for today. So like Sharon said, Jody, Sharon, and I will be reviewing the bids in May. So today we are looking to get a consensus from the county board members on which pricing option would be the preferred for the program. Just some history, the electric aggregation program In April 2014, a majority of voters in unincorporated Kane County passed a referendum to allow the county to arrange for the supply of electricity for residential and small commercial customers through an electric aggregation program. So the program was supposed to help residents save money by creating a combined customer group with more buying power. So in the past, we have gone with pricing option A, but today we wanted to give all of the pricing options. So we would like to get a consensus of which options are preferred by the board members. Thank you.
If I could just add to Ivy, historically, there was a great difference between the rates we were getting in ComEds. In this past year, Kane County unincorporated area was very fortunate, as Sharon showed in her first graph, to receive a rate that was lower than ComEd's, and we were able to save our constituents money throughout the year as our rate remained lower than ComEd's the entire year. We had the same challenge last year in that we had this discussion with the green power option because we did not know, like those other communities Sharon shared, we did not know if we were going to be able to achieve that. At that time, our driving force was the fact that this referendum was passed by residents of Kane County to save them money. So in looking at option B, what we were considering, if we did have to go with option B, was that that money should go back to those ratepayers. And so we had worked with the treasurer's office, Rickard at the time, and he was going to issue, once we received the civic contribution, he was going to issue refunds to each of our constituents that were in the program for the amount divided amongst the constituents that we received as a civic contribution. So the only amount that would have been kept at the county is our operating costs for the program, which is around $25,000 a year. The remaining amount would have been refunded. So when we're talking about option B, we're also talking about, does the county keep those funds, or do we stay with the discussion as it was held last year that those funds would be worked through the treasurer's office and again refunded to our constituents?
I have a question, Commissioner Bates, or Madam Chair Bates.
Please go ahead.
Historically, kilowatt hour, do we know past 10 years where the rate was at?
Per kilowatt hour. What the rate is, yes, I don't have that in front of me, but it's always been below the ComEd rate. The ComEd rate for, the fixed rate for the Kane program, I don't have that number in front of me, I'm sorry.
And the reason I'm asking is because, the decision, I think the program's good, is the decision of 1, 2, or 3 years. If we feel like the rate is historically low, I would prefer to lock in for 3 years. That's what I was asking.
Okay, really appreciate that comment. There have been some surprises. 10 years ago, the ComEd rate was at 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So customer choice in Illinois has had a big impact. Then in 2008, sorry, that was before, I'm going back too far, but there was a bit of a lull in manufacturing that brought down demand, as well as the natural gas fracking technologies, which put huge downward pressure on prices. So future, I don't know if the economy is depressed, that would depress prices. There's so much uncertainty that my thought would be to keep a fairly short leash on it, no more than 1 or 2 years, because it's a little bit more of a risk into the unknown as it can be. Sorry, this is a long answer. A little bit riskier in my opinion.
In the past 10 years, have you ever seen it below 6.5 per kilowatt hour?
It has been for a short period of time, for a month or two, yes. I can send you that chart.
Okay.
I appreciate the long answer. Thank you. Do we have more questions or comments?
Chairman Bates, Wonicki here. I do have a
Yes, please.
question, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you, but as I drive west in Kane County, west of Route 47, I'm seeing solar farms appearing all over. Do you think that'll have a long-term effect on the pricing in the future?
Solar farms are costlier because renewable energy is costlier to build, and there's a premium on it, financially costlier. Environmentally, that's a different thing. I don't think that will have a significant impact, no. Whatever the current administration may have to say about fracking could have a huge impact. That's what I was saying to this gentleman, trustee. Um, So many vagaries. Keep kind of a short leash on it because you wouldn't want to be caught upside down. Hard to say.
Okay, well, thank you.
I have a comment. Aurora's first aggregation program locked us into what sounded like a great price. I can't remember if it was, 6 3/4, 6.75 or something like that. It sounded great. But then during the course of our contract, ComEd dropped below that fixed price. And then there was heck to pay. The aldermen were getting a lot of nasty calls, and that's why we had to end our aggregation program, our first one. Now the second one is more flexible. So you might think you're locking in a great rate for a couple of years, and then something might happen and it's not great. So
Another comment, if I may, Chairman Bates.
sure.
If you'll notice some of the bid pricing for 1, 2, and 3 years, you'll see that the suppliers are reflecting that they expect some of the actual costs to drop. For example, Dynegy Energy's pricing drops from year to year from 6.7, 6.4, 6.3. So that reflects that their analysts think their power costs will actually be declining a little bit. That's
Are
again
you on
another.
option A? Are you looking at option
Yes,
A?
yes.
Okay,
yes.
so I see what you're talking about. 6.7, 6.4, 6.3, 6.7, 6.4, 6.3.
So that tells us what the suppliers, analysts believe, and that's their expertise. It's not mine as to future rates. So another vote, just underline what you just said about keeping kind of a short leash on it, 1 or 2 years.
Any other comments? Because I have several more, but I want to give everybody a chance.
Madam Bates,
Yes, sir.
Caius,
Please. Yes.
so if they do get flipped, isn't it you can opt out anytime, right? These have
Yes.
the total flexibility. So if it does flip,
Yes.
go back to the other one. For people that are really concerned about it.
There's a supplier, I've read their agreement, it says you may not put out any press release or advise residents to leave at any time. We don't allow that in our contracts.
Yeah.
You can say what you want, where you want. I don't think you should do something that would get to that level, but I would recommend then you would put out a press release. Folks leave. It would be your decision, but you're free to, I call it free speech.
So even though we're locking in for 3 years, each of the individuals has the option to say, hey, I'm getting
That is correct.
0.2 cents less. I'm changing.
I have a comment to that, if I may. Chair, this is Corinne Pirog.
Please. Yes.
That puts a lot of onus and responsibility on the consumer to do that, to make that opt change. Life is busy, kids, activities, work, et cetera. So you have to have a consumer who's highly sensitive to that. Most consumers you lock in, you're good to go. So that would be, if we're going to be doing that we should be very mindful and making the instructions incredibly easy for them as a reminder, not just a press release, because I've been talking to constituents who I think are very engaged. And I said, didn't you read it in the paper? Oh, I don't read the paper. Or it's an is. We can't question why, it's just an is. So this certainly would be a very low level for them. So that would be my only concern from the consumer end.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It seems like we would owe them a press release to tell our constituents when the price has gone flipped, as Mr. Caius said. I believe that our duty today is to try to give you some direction between option A and option B. Is that correct? What you are hoping for?
Madam Chair, I think we would use the direction from our consultant, whether we're selecting option A, because if it's not below ComEd's rate enough, we don't want to take that risk. And so the direction we would ask is for option B, if we want to maximize the civic contribution and whether that comes to the county or is refunded to the residents.
But isn't our main goal to save our residents money? So you're saying that the at ComEd rate gives us that bonus of the civic contribution, which we can refund to our residents. So that's maybe the best option for saving our residents money on this program.
Correct, if we can't go with option A because the bids are too high.
Okay. So do we wait until the bids come in to determine that? We have to wait?
Yes, we have 48 hours for Madam Chair to sign the contract.
24.
24 hours, I apologize. So we have her schedule cleared for that day. So we're able to review that and have that discussion, but it is not something time-wise that can come back to this committee. So we'd like to hear the committee's general direction to Madam Chair here and yourself. We will have a conversation with the three of us as well as our consultant and make that determination at that time. But it would be good to know if we're doing 50%, we're looking at a 50% civic contribution with 50% green power. We want to say 0 green power, and we want to maximize that civic contribution and then refund that back to the residents.
Question, Caius?
Please, go ahead.
If we did a similar thing in the Forest Preserve already, in that we opted for the green energy. At the time that we get their offer, which is this exact date that this is going to happen, like you said, you have 24 hours. Can we give you directions to say that if the green energy, that's an option, right? It like the 50% or 100%. Can we give you direction to say, if it's not 2% more, if it's above 2% more, then don't do the green option, or some parameters to decide? Because we won't be able to decide. You're the one that's going to decide. But can we give you a parameters to say, okay, if it's 5% above, this is an example. Maybe you have a better example. If it's 5% to do green, we don't want to do it. But if it's less than 5%, we do want to do it. Something like that, so we can ballpark it.
Yes, if we're looking at option A, that would be what I call standard, or I'll call it brown energy. To be clear, that includes minimum Illinois RPS, which is 17.5%. I'll just throw that out there. But if you're talking about percentage, for example, we know the ComEd rate is 7 cents. You're suggesting maybe giving specific parameters, like if AEP Energy were to come in at 645. Do you want a percentage? And that's just 0.05 below 6.5, the bottom end of the range. You're suggesting giving some specific parameters around that
Well,
pricing?
I was trying to design it for the green energy, because that's one option. I was just focusing on the green energy, but I guess that would work as well.
Well, on the green energy, your options probably won't vary from what you're looking at right here. 0% from Eligo, 444,000. I don't think that will change significantly.
Is that,
Yeah, that's option B pricing, the second to the last page.
Chris, with the green energy, it would match ComEd's rates. So everybody would be paying the same as a normal ComEd customer. It's the amount of green energy, so the 25, 50, or 100% green energy that maximizes our civic contribution. So the less green energy you do matching the ComEd rate, it increases the civic contribution to the county. So if we do 0 green power and we're matching the ComEd rate, the county gets back $417,000 a year. But the customers are paying the ComEd rate. They don't see any difference. On our end is where we see the difference in how much green power and how much civic contribution we get. So in order to maximize the refund we can give them on their ComEd rate, we have to do less green power.
well, that's a decision we have to make, whether we want to give them more money back or
Do more green power
yeah,
for option B.
Could we see that chart?
Second to the last page.
I think it's on page 11.
11.
Yes.
Yes, it is 11. So essentially, if I may interject, if you chose, let's say, EPA minimum, you would be removing $20,000 of potential monies from residents. And just broadly speaking, that'd be over the year, $1.50
I'm
per
sorry.
meter.
You say, okay, you say that, where do I see this in the chart here, that we're reducing $20,000?
I'm looking at under Eligo, EPA minimum $419,000.
Yes.
And above that is 0%, which is what you're currently receiving, 444. I guess that's 25,000. My math is off, roughly $25,000 differential. So if you chose EPA minimum to have green energy, that would be, you might say, a cost imposed on the residents and slightly less that they would receive, maybe $1 or $2 over the course of a year.
Ms. Wolnick? Jody? Can I
Yes.
ask you another question? So you were explaining to me that the referendum was for the purpose of saving money for the consumers, correct?
That was the intent of the establishment of the program, correct?
Do you feel that the wording, that we have leeway? I'm not asking you to be an elected official, which you don't like me to do, but I believe. But do you feel like we have leeway in the referendum to do some green energy at this $25,000 cost to the consumers or to the civic contribution?
That's where we're asking direction from the committee. I think
Okay.
Sharon presented the chart of all the communities that have taken that civic contribution. And as I understand, their rationale is that they're using it for projects that go back to the people who voted in the electric aggregation program in the first place. So that's a philosophical discussion, whether we send a check for about $35 to each resident and they have $35 more in their pocket, or the county takes those funds and does something for the residents of unincorporated Kane County that are in that electric aggregation program for that amount of money.
Okay, so we can get the green energy, say we took the EPA minimum, we would be sacrificing or giving back that $25,000 or not getting as much, but that 25, So then we are not losing, but we are paying $25,000 in essence to get the green energy, and our consumers will not get that money back. Correct?
That's correct.
But as elected officials, we have the ability to make our judgment of what would be the best for everybody. Money-wise and environmental-wise. I'd like to go with the EPA minimum, I think.
Chair, this is Pirog.
Yes.
What?
Question, Kobe?
Oh, hold on just a second, Mr. Kobe. Can I ask, what kind of projects are we talking about? $35 is always welcomed. But if we were going to use it as a project, what kind of project would take value over the $35?
I would think that we could consider things like more charging stations, more EV charging stations, or other suggestions.
Solar?
Solar, we could add.
Solar, I don't, I'm just throwing it out there. Or
Sure.
we use it for some energy, some green, and it would stay in our environmental department to do a project that would relate to improving the environment.
It could, we're looking at a grant for solar panels, and the grant would only pay 60%. So we will be looking for that other 40% in our budget. That could be a project that it could go towards.
Are there any suggestions what the other communities have done?
I'll get back to the referendum. The referendum language doesn't specify what benefits, whether it's savings or green, but it just authorizes an entity to undertake a program, just to make that clear. But as Jody says, that's the initial intent, certainly. Projects, as I mentioned, one community, Norwich, decided they wanted to let people know in the opt-out notices, we are using these funds for new recycling bins, and that was well received. Some communities, for example, I'll just speak, Arlington Heights, they haven't decided yet. They're in year 2, but they put it away for the future project. So a decision isn't always made at the time. Sometimes it's set aside and determined later whether to be given back or to be put towards a project. At this point, it's just a matter of choosing which program to go, but where the monies go, some communities haven't made up their minds. Last night in Hanover Park, they were discussing added recycling programs and paying for a GRC2 study, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, to be able to support funding for that.
Mr. Copey, I'd like to call on you.
Yes, the question I have is, thank you, Madam Chair. The question I have is essentially the same as Mr. Hope, and that is what type of an investment do we need to make, and is there a parameter on that, and how much of an investment do we need to make? Is there a parameter on that?
Investment in what, Mr. Copey?
In the green portion of this
Okay.
idea.
Okay, well, okay.
The
So
funds
what-
do come with no restriction, 0.
I think we can invest whatever we get as the civic contribution. So if we look at the EPA minimum, we're looking at a civic contribution of $419,000. So $1,000. So that's the amount that we could invest in projects or in refunds.
Chairman Bates, I have a question or comment.
Yeah, who's this, please?
Weber, Commissioner Weber.
Okay.
I'm in favor of the money going back to the people. A lot of King County is, so some of those other cities that are deciding on stuff, they're very urban. They don't have unincorporated areas like King County. I think the money should just go back to the residents. I don't think we should overcomplicate this. We should keep it the way they envision the referendum being handled. I think it's pretty simple.
Caius, question. In order to refund it, what's the expense of refunding, and how many checks would be cut to how many customers do we have? How many checks would be cut? What would be the cost of that?
We evaluated that with Mr. Rickard before he left the county. It was a cost of $15,000. They would be refunded like a Menards refund. So people would receive a check and have 90 days to cash it. Again, depending on the amount, we might get some people that just plain don't go to the bank and cash it. And so whatever amount wouldn't be cashed after that 90 days would then end up coming back to the county.
So was an estimate of how many checks went out?
It was $15,000 or 15,000 customers, $15,000. So it was about $1 a check.
That was refunded?
That would have been correct. The cost for the refund.
It only cost $1 to send them out?
Correct. Mr. Rickard gave us that estimate last year.
Efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stamp costs 30 cents.
That's most
right?
of $1 there, yeah.
55 cents for a stamp now.
Right. But labor and stuff.
Doing
I don't-
postcards, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I hope we get a bulk rate.
So we'd pair, whatever we got back, we'd pare that down by $15,000 just for sending back the money.
Correct.
Whatever percentage that is, we lost that.
Yeah, and hopefully our new treasurer would be willing to work with us on that.
A question from Alan
Go
was
ahead, Ms. Allen.
after we covered our costs, the average check going out to the customer was around $35. Is that what I'm understanding?
For the amount on the EPA minimum with our current customer count, it is around $35. The intent with the program, we were going to do it multiple years, so we would only send out that refund check every 2 years.
So the $35 was for 2 years?
No, it'd be 70 for 2 years.
Wow, that starts to look like real money. Thank you.
Always does, yeah.
Okay, what other decisions do we need to make here? Have we given you enough to go on, or what questions do you have, Sharon, that you want us to come to? What conclusions do you need us to come to?
I'm turn it to Jody if you've achieved your objectives.
I think we'd like a consensus as to what option B pricing the committee would be in favor of, as well as a consensus of whether that's to be returned to the residents or not.
Okay, I'll go first to lead the group. I think I believe my opinion right now is that we should be returning the money to the ratepayers, because that was the intention of the referendum. And I also think that we should go for the EPA minimum to shows that Kane County has some, to do a little bit towards helping with green energy. So I'll throw that out to get the conversation going.
I'm fine with that option.
What?
Commissioner Weber's fine with that option.
What'd you say?
Alan agrees.
I'm fine with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And what was the
Madam
option?
Chair, this is Cheryl.
Oh, sorry.
Cheryl, please.
Yes, I think Kane County is in a position to make a difference in a commitment to green energy. And I like that idea. I can see both sides of returning the money or not returning. $70 is, on its way to being real money. But at the same time, that's a small cost for a resident to pay to move us forward.
So you are leaning towards not refunding the checks and using that for a green project.
Yes, I am. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Just to
that's how.
complicate things further.
Well,
I'd like to go with 100% green, but I don't think that's the spirit of the referendum. So, Mr. Caius.
Well, Caius, yes, I'd lean toward as much green as we can do, and I'd like to see it maybe the rebate or the money that we get back put into some sort of reasonable and popular, something that would benefit the county, like a recycling center or a recycling program to say, okay, you're contributing a little more on your electricity, but we're going to make sure we have adequate recycling and adequate recycling centers so that we're as green as possible. Does that clarify or make it muddier?
Does
That's my
anyone have,
opinion.
I'm sorry that I didn't do this ahead of time. Does anybody have a copy of the referendum that they could read to us? How hard would that be to find?
Most of it, didn't you?
So yes, I did speak. This is Ivy. I did speak. I gave a quick introduction to the referendum. If you want to see the referendum, if you want to go to our department's website, there is an electric aggregation link, but it pretty much just shows what percentage of people voted for in unincorporated Kane County, yes or no, the electric aggregation program. And I think it was like 54% versus 43, something like that.
Jody, do you remember the wording as best to your knowledge? I know you keep emphasizing that the ratepayers were asking for saving money.
Well, and I think Sharon's correct. It didn't actually say that in the referendum, but that was the intent of the program. So the program wouldn't have been established if the intent wasn't to save the ratepayers money. The spirit, as Mr. Caius, I believe, stated, it was the spirit of the referendum.
Chairman Bates, this is Wonicky. I think we just need to move ahead and try to get the cheapest rates we can. I like the idea of the money going to the county, because a lot of my district is unincorporated, and the unincorporated districts don't have the luxury of parks or park districts or places where they can go and gather, and maybe we could do something along that line, along with like planting native trees at that park, or even do like a community garden somewhere in the unincorporated areas. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Nicky. All of you are pulling on my heartstrings, making me want to do more green, more, better, more community projects. And yet the wording of the referendum, or the spirit of the referendum, to save money, I think that's why I put out the EPA minimum. It seems like a compromise to me. What if we did the EPA minimum but kept the money for a project?
A quick question. Is there a recycling center out in the unincorporated area? I'm not aware of one.
No, I don't believe so. I think like the Lions in Elburn, I think they do separate projects every now and then, like with shredding, I think once a year. But as far as like a regular recycling center, I don't believe so. Mhm.
That
That's a
may
good
be,
idea.
that might be an option.
Sure, sure.
Well, I think for decision making, we should separate this into two issues. The first one would be which level of program to use, and then the second one would be whether to keep the money, keep the contribution, or to give it away. Or does that make sense? Can we separate this into two issues?
Well, Nikki here, as Sharon had said, there seems to be no hurry if we keep the money and then eventually decide what to do with it. We could come back at another date and decide what would be the best use for the dollars that we're holding for the customers, instead of giving them a refund. And I think it's a good use. I think it's the way to go.
So you're voting for keep the contributions.
Yes, and then
use it for a project.
And we can decide that at a different day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at the pricing levels or the percentage of green energy. I'm suggesting the EPA minimum. Can we get a consensus on the green energy level?
Yes.
Are we okay with the?
Is there, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, Caius?
Yes.
Is there a slide? Which of the slides show what this is we're talking about?
The second from the last slide. Nope. The second from the last slide of the of this
Oh,
set.
okay, sorry, thanks.
Page 11.
Yes.
Page 11. So
Okay.
yeah. So I'm just I hope that this is, I'm using my natural leadership skills. I'm trying to say, let's decide first of all on the rate that we want to go for. We will be at the ComEd rate, but then I think we're going to go with option B. Now within option B, we have these different levels of green energy on page 11 of the packet, where we can go to zero green energy, the EPA minimum, 25%, 50%, or 100%. So I'm suggesting the EPA minimum would be within the spirit of the referendum. And so I'm suggesting that we gain consensus for the EPA minimum.
Mavis, this is Jody. I just want to jump in there. The decision wouldn't be option A over option B. We're going to wait to see what the bids come in. And if the option A bid is low enough below ComEd's rate, that would be the option we would go with. If it's not, the discussion is what would we do with option B?
Oh boy. Okay. Thanks, Jody. Okay. So option A, if the price is low enough, then option B, if we decide that it's better to go with the at ComEd rate, and then if we do go with option B, which of the green energy options do we want to go with? And I'm saying the EPA minimum. Any other
And that was,
considerations? And as Sharon said, the RPS, what's the RPS right now?
17.5%. And this
So-
would be actually in addition to the 17.5%.
And that the EPA minimum we think is about 10%. So I'm saying-
It could be in that range, but it would be on top of that 17.5
Okay.
technically. and
Okay, thank
actually.
you.
Question, Kopi?
Mr. Copey, please.
Thank you. So there's obviously a quantized dollar amount to these percentage investment. And that was the question, the point that I was alluding to is there a possibility we could have some type of an idea, because my brain equates to dollars versus the percentages of something. Like 100%, if 100% was an option, how many dollars of an investment would that be?
I think you'd have to subtract the 0% green energy. So subtract 100% green energy amount from the 0% green energy amount, and 444 minus 382. Right? I'm
just
pretty good at
ballpark,
math
is that
here.
about 62,000? Is that the difference between the first line and the last line?
Yeah. So, Mr. Copey, does that answer your question? The investment in 100% green energy would cost us $62,000 compared to.
Between 0 and 62,000? Okay, thank you.
I'm making that up a little bit, but I think that's a logical way to look at it.
Oh, that's fine, as long as it's not 0 to 62 million. Yes, thank you.
62,000 would be the difference between 100% green energy and 0% green energy. Okay, so I don't hear any objections to the EPA minimum for the green energy option. Is there any objections to the EPA minimum green energy option?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I don't object, but the difference would be if we have 15,000 ratepayers and we cost $60,000, is about $4 a
It
check
certainly is.
difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the difference between going completely green to any particular ratepayer would be that we would be giving a refund to, or using it on another project, would be about $4 per ratepayer.
Which is not very much.
Well, of course, if you add up in 100 years, it adds up to a lot of money, which is what we're doing with the $15 or whatever it was, $30.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Caius.
That's why I was leaning toward the 100%. I think $4 is not all that much, but I would certainly compromise if that would be the wish of the committee to do less than that, but just to be aware that it's only $4 per ratepayer.
Okay, I think that's an excellent point, in which case I would suggest we go with 100% green energy. Now, may I hear any objections to that?
Just a little comment from Corinne. So obviously I'm not against green energy, but if we take a look at receiving the civic contribution before, just want to make sure that there is enough resources available for the project that you're looking at and defining what that project is before, or refund back, rebate back to the consumer before those decisions are made. And this is a 2-year program? We're locking in for 2 years, is that correct?
In this case, it could be 1, 2, or 3 years. The only downside risk of not locking in for 3 years is in the event you could get a lower rate savings again in one of those ensuing years.
And Chair Bates, aren't you correct? Haven't you shared with me that we're expecting that green energy costs are going to continue to de-escalate as we move forward to the future?
That's what we all think.
We're hoping, knock on wood.
Right.
But that way we could get an estimate, even if it was just EPA minimum. We have $820,000 for a project. And with a, little money thrown in from here and there, that could be $1 million project that we could work on, which is a significant project.
Where do we get our $820 million,
And 20,000,
$820,000?
820, well, times two. If that's every year, we're getting back the 419,000.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, 840.
So that could be a really nice recycling center or whatever,
Uh-huh.
just as an example.
Yeah.
And that would involve keeping the money for a project.
Chairman Bates, Nikki here. I'm 100% for green energy, and I've been so active with, open space and preservation and native plants and trees. And however, and maybe we're looking at this at a wrong time with the COVID. There are elderly residents in my district that are going to the township for general assistance to help pay with some of their bills because they're having a really rough time, And so if this contract is only for 1 year or 2 years, or maybe even 3 years, maybe this is the 100% green energy is maybe something we should look at just a year or two down the line till we can get through this pandemic and the struggle that people are going through. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Ms. Monique. This is a very difficult decision. After all, I thought it would not be this difficult. I keep making suggestions and trying to get to a consensus, and we are having a lot of trouble reaching a consensus. So we've bounced from 0 to 100%. I'm going to go back to the EPA minimum. But Ms. Wolnicki, how would you feel about the EPA minimum? Do you feel like that's a good option?
Yes, I would agree with you.
Okay. In spite of the fact that, but Ms. Wolnicki, so Mr. Kai has pointed out that the difference in the check would be $4 between 100% and the EPA minimum. Do you feel like that's a burden on your seniors?
I think the seniors would appreciate getting the full amount back instead of, a half of the amount back. I don't know. I just think that green energy is wonderful, and I think this is what our committee is supposed to do, but I think it's just a really difficult time right now with the pandemic to be not refunding the full amount to customers or, the full amount coming to us so we could do something for our customers and help them, our residents.
Thank you, Ms. Wolnicki.
Ms. Bates, could I jump in here and make a suggestion maybe?
Please do. I'm struggling.
Given the hour, I think I'm hearing from the committee that everyone is supportive of the EPA minimum, which is that we would, if we had to go with option B, we would go with the EPA minimum. As Sharon points out, we don't need to decide whether we're refunding the amount or keeping the amount when we sign the bids in early May. So if we can have a consensus that the committee is on board with the EPA minimum, that would be our direction, Chairwoman Parag, when the bids do come in. And then at that point, we can have further discussion at this committee, whether that amount is refunded based on the actual dollars we get in those bids, or if it's used for some sort of civic project.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect to me. Yeah. May I ask for any objections to that? So we will go with we will suggest to Madam Chairman Pirag that if we do not go with option A, because we get a very good, we will go with option A if we get a very good price. If we go with option B, we will suggest to Chairwoman Pirag that she goes with the EPA minimum amount And in the future, we will decide whether or not to refund that money or keep it for a project. May I hear any objections to that plan?
No, but thank you, Chairman Bates, and thank you, Jody. Jody's been so involved in the aggregation issue. I think we should follow her lead.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely.
I think we have a consensus. Thank you so much. It's a difficult decision. Thank you, Jody, for jumping in. We have reached the end of our legal time, but I would like to, I hope Jobs doesn't mind too much if we go ahead with Jennifer Jobs. So I'm going to conclude this part of the meeting. Thank you, Sharon, for all of your expertise, and Jody and Ivy. Jennifer, Ms. Jarland, can you give us your presentation now, please?
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Bates. I can shorten it or I can move my presentation to next month if that's better. It's a lot of information. It usually takes me 25 minutes to get through it. So,
thank
I
you
mean,
for that.
fasten your
Let's table-
seatbelts and.
Do you need your resolution passed today?
Yeah.
Right. So let me just skim through to the end, do a little bit of the updates at the end, and then do the resolution. I think that would be better for today.
Okay, we will put your report on the next month's meeting agenda, but please.
Okay, thanks.
Let's get to our resolution.
Okay, so I'm going to try the clicker here, and it is not working, Blair. Oh, is that me? It is working. Oh no, you're doing that. No? Sorry, everyone. Okay, gonna get here to, oh, if people want to see me, they can see me, but okay. I'm going to hit this slide just because it's so amazing. This is just about the Kane County Connects articles that we do. I do submit an article to Rick every week on recycling topics. So over 50 of them get published a year. 100,000 people have clicked and read recycling articles this year, or excuse me, last year. I'm doing 2020 numbers here. And the top 5 articles alone garnered over 22,000 clicks. We have 32,000 subscribers on the Kane County Connects now. So those are just amazing numbers. And I'm so happy people are that interested in recycling. So here's a couple of the updates that I wanted to give for this year. Spray can recycling program that we started last year at the events is actually now, it's continuing in this year. We do the gallon cans of paint, but also spray cans through another company called Flat Can Recycling. And they are also now working with Ace Hardware in Geneva Ace Hardware is a drop off for spray cans. And they don't just take paint anymore. They also take other cleaning products and things that are any aerosol cans. So just know that Ace Hardware can accept those now for 75 cents a can. Bins and barrels sale, just a heads up, we have done an article on that last week, and or maybe it came out on Monday. The online orders are open now, and there's all these are links in your packet. If you're interested, you can order your bins and barrels now, compost bins and rain barrels. And then we're going to do a webinar at the end of this month, just talking to people about the importance of those things and then how they can order theirs and pick them up on the pickup day in May. I won't go into the Great Lakes Circular Economy Partnership too much info right now, but also just wanted to mention that I am working with the vaccination hubs in Kane County, Batavia, Aurora, and Elgin to install recycling programs there, because when they got started, of course, they just didn't get that done. Aaron Stevens from OEM has called me and said, please help. So we're doing that. I'm meeting today at Batavia and Aurora to install bins at key locations. We're not trying to capture everything. We're capturing the cardboard that is coming with all the shipments in it. There's a massive amount of cardboard, and then water bottles and sheets of paper. Like, that's a very limited program. Also any aluminum cans they may have from drinks. So I'm going to hang these kinds of really simple pictorial posters above saying, those are the 3 things you can put in here: paper, water bottles, and drink cans. That's it. Everything else goes in the trash. And then there's trash posters over the trash bins as well that just basically says everything else. And I'm working to train the custodians and the National Guard and everybody so that it'll get done properly. just a heads up on that. Okay. So we do have 2 recycling centers that are Kane County recycling centers currently, as you all probably know, the one in Batavia on Fabian Parkway and the one in West Dundee Public Works Yard. And they collect electronics, clothing, and books. Fabian also does accept scrap metal. We have been looking for some time for an Aurora location so that we can have our 3 dots on the map, northern, central, southern. And we have, through our electronics recycler eWorks, come into communication with and relationship with an organization called VetTech. They are a nonprofit organization that helps to aid veterans in finding jobs and other veteran services. In any case, they are located in a large facility down there with loading docks and for the most part a very empty building, but they're hoping to develop that out into further programs. They have offered to be the host of a recycling center down there, and with the loading docks, it's an ideal location. And so we have written up an agreement. I am afraid I did not insert that in the packet because I was busily trying to finalize it with state's attorney. Having looked at it, I'm working with Kathy Watson, as well as making sure eWorks and VetTech were both okay with it. We're not quite there yet. I do have a copy in my hand if anyone wants to have a look at it. I had laid one there in front of you, Barb, and I know Chris saw it here. We're real close to the end of finalizing this, and eWorks has given their written approval of it. I'm still waiting to hear from VetTech, but they had in theory and in conversation agreed to everything that we've put in here. The one change to the resolution that you will have before you today, and we can go ahead and switch to that, Blair, if you like. The resolution itself is going to have one change, and it is going to be in the 5th paragraph, the 5th whereas. Because one of the recommendations from in communication with purchasing and with state's attorney is that instead of making it an incentive payment of $300 per month, which equaled $2,500 for the remainder of this year. Like West Dundee, we pay them an incentive payment to be the host because they incur costs in doing that. And so we set this amount. It is acceptable in our budget of the money that we have for my programs, for recycling programs. So that's what we had put in there, but it was advised that we should make it a reimbursement rather than an incentive payment. So the wording in the middle of that, so let me just read the revision. It will say, whereas the entity known and recognized as VetTech, herein referred to as the host, is a nonprofit working for the common good, shall host the new recycling center at their Aurora facility on behalf of the county, and here comes the change, with reimbursements for costs incurred to be paid by the county to the host for an amount not to exceed $300 per month for the term of this agreement, and to be reassessed each agreement term, et cetera. So what that means is that they will have to invoice us for actual costs, not to exceed $300 per month for any costs that they may incur for snow plowing, for repairing the asphalt surface, you know, for anything that they need to do that may incur costs. So that was just a wording to clean it up and make it more clear that this is a special arrangement, not for profit of any entity. And we are real close, as I said, to finalizing this agreement, but the reason I'm bringing it to you today here as a resolution to be approved and move forward is because we hope to have an open date of June 1st. And in order to do that and have it all approved by the board, we need to run it at this time. I'm open to any questions before the vote.
I'll move with, I'll move this resolution with the changes as described by our director.
Thank you,
Alan
Mr.
seconds.
Caius. Who seconded?
Alan seconds.
Alan, thank you very much. Is there any more discussion for this resolution? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alan?
Alan, aye.
Caius?
Yes.
Molina?
Molina, yes.
Strathman?
Strathman, yes.
Weber?
Weber, yes.
Winnicki?
Winicky, yes.
Passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Jarlin. I
Thank you,
believe,
Madam Chair.
pardon me?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, you're welcome. In the interest of time, I believe I would like to, because we've tabled this one issue once already, I would like to just go quickly through the presentation I have about the bottle bill. Blair, if you could go down to the bottom of the, there you go. I will only take a few minutes on this. I heard about this Illinois Container Fee and Deposit Act, and it perked my ears because it sounded like not only a way to help keep garbage out of the landfill, but also to help as a possible revenue source for our Energy and Environmental Committee. Next slide, please, Blair. So they would create a fund. This is about an Illinois Container Fee and Deposit Fund. The state must set up a fund to handle the deposits. So the consumer would pay a deposit of 5 cents on every beverage container sold in the state. The refund, the consumer brings back the empty beverage container to redeem her 5 cents. Next slide, please. So the revenue possibility for Kane County, and this is not going to pass this session. We know that this is still maybe a year or 2 or 3 away. But the idea is that the reimbursement center, there'd be a reimbursement center fee, and Kane County could conceivably at one or all of our recycling centers create a redemption center. So for every bottle that we redeemed, we would receive 2 cents. And this is paid by the distributor who collects the containers. I did contact the sponsor of this bill to check out of whose pocket does this 2 cents come, and they thought it was the distributor. So, we'd have to have labels on the bottles, and disposal would be prohibited at a landfill of these beverage containers. So next slide, please. So any deposits that are not claimed, just like Jody was talking about those other checks, 75% would go to environmental and conservation related programs, and 25% would go back to the distributors. Is there one more slide, or is that it? Okay, so the current state of HB 1799, there are several sponsors. It will not pass this year, but I want you to know about this bill, that it may come up next year, and we will be pushing for it. Okay, thank you. So that brings us to public comment. Is there any public comment online or in the room? May I ask for a motion that the reports be placed on file?
Caius moves.
Thank you.
Strathman, second.
Thank you, Ms. Strathman. Please call the roll.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Weber,
Weber, yes.
Winnicke.
Winnicke, yes.
Yeses.
I have one short comment, chairman's comment, and that's that we are moving forward with putting on an RFP for possibly 8 acres of solar panels in the hinterlands of the Judicial Center. And I have taken a couple of people out on walkabouts. I took Drew Fraz yesterday because he's so involved with the construction over there. I would be happy to take any of you for a little hike to go see the lands that we will be looking at, and we will be putting that on the agenda for next month. It's one very interesting wrinkle in all this is that to get the best savings, which could be $150,000 a year for the county by putting in these solar panels, we need to get the Clean Energy Jobs Act passed. So if you would be so kind as to make a call to your legislator about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, those are funds that all of a sudden are very personal to Kane County. That's the conclusion of my comments. I see no reason to go into executive session, and may I ask for a motion to adjourn?
Caius move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Stratton,
Honig
second.
seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Hodeke. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody, for your service to
Aye.
King County. Bye-bye.